The belief that leaving an electric fan running overnight can be fatal, commonly known as fan death, is a peculiar superstition most prevalent in South Korea. This urban legend claims that sleeping in a closed room with a fan on can lead to suffocation, hypothermia, or other deadly consequences. Despite its cultural significance, the idea has faced widespread skepticism and scientific debunking. This video explores the origins of the fan death myth, its cultural context, the scientific evidence against it, and whether there's any truth to the notion that a fan left on all night could pose a lethal risk. The fan death superstition is deeply rooted in South Korean culture, emerging prominently in the 20th century, particularly during the 1970s. One theory suggests it originated as a government campaign to conserve electricity during energy shortages, encouraging people to turn off fans at night by exaggerating their dangers. Another hypothesis points to early misattributions of deaths in poorly ventilated rooms, possibly due to heat stroke, carbon monoxide poisoning, or other unrelated causes, which were blamed on fans. By the 1990s, fan death had become a widely accepted belief in South Korea, with media reports citing cases of people found dead with fans running nearby. Fan manufacturers reinforced the myth by including warning labels and automatic shut-off timers on their products, marketed as safety features. Common explanations for the alleged danger include oxygen depletion, hypothermia from excessive cooling, or dehydration caused by the fan's airflow. These claims, however, lack scientific grounding and have been perpetuated by anecdotal stories and cultural momentum. While fan death is most associated with South Korea, similar concerns about fans or airflow exist in other cultures, often tied to traditional beliefs about air and health. However, the specific fear of fatal fan use remains largely unique to South Korea. Fan death is more than a superstition, it's a cultural phenomenon that reflects South Korea's blend of modernity and traditional beliefs. In Korean folklore, air and breath are linked to life force, and disruptions, whether by spirits or machines, can be seen as dangerous. The emphasis on closed rooms in the myth aligns with traditional concerns about proper ventilation to maintain spiritual and physical health. The myth's persistence is bolstered by institutional factors. South Korean media have historically reported fan-related deaths without rigorous investigation, and some medical professionals have speculated about causes like hypothermia, lending credibility to the belief. Fan timers and warnings in manuals further normalize the fear, embedding it in everyday life. For example, many South Korean households avoid running fans overnight in sealed rooms, and parents often warn children of the supposed risks. Socially, fan death serves as a shared cultural narrative, much like other superstitions that foster community through collective caution. Discussions on platforms like X reveal a mix of belief and skepticism, with some users sharing stories of near misses, while others mock the myth as outdated. The belief's endurance highlights how cultural narratives can outlast scientific scrutiny, especially in a society that values tradition. Scientifically, the fan death myth is unfounded. Electric fans simply circulate air without altering its composition or temperature significantly enough to cause harm. Let's examine the main claims. Oxygen depletion or suffocation. Fans do not consume oxygen or create a vacuum. They move existing air, maintaining the room's oxygen levels. Suffocation in a closed room would require a gas like carbon monoxide to displace oxygen, which fans cannot produce. Hypothermia. Hypothermia occurs when body temperature drops below 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, typically in extreme cold. A fan's cooling effect, even in a closed room, is minimal and cannot lower core body temperature to dangerous levels, especially in warm weather when fans are commonly used. The body's thermoregulatory system prevents this. Dehydration. Fans may increase evaporation on the skin or mucous membranes, potentially causing mild dryness in the throat or eyes. However, this is far from severe dehydration, which requires significant fluid loss over time. Normal hydration practices easily mitigate this effect. A 2006 study by the Korean Consumer Protection Board found no evidence linking fans to sudden death. Reported fan death cases often involve pre-existing conditions, such as heart disease or alcohol intoxication, with the fan's presence being coincidental. Global medical literature lacks any peer-reviewed studies supporting the myth, and organizations like the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency have dismissed fan death as a misconception. Many deaths attributed to fan death have plausible alternative causes. South Korea's hot, humid summers can lead to heat stroke or dehydration, particularly in the elderly or those with health issues, especially in poorly ventilated spaces. Alcohol, noted in some cases, can impair breathing or thermoregulation, contributing to fatalities misattributed to fans. Coroners rarely list fans as a cause of death, and media sensationalism has likely amplified the myth. Confirmation bias plays a significant role. Once the belief took hold, any death in a room with a running fan was blamed on the device, ignoring other factors. Cultural trust in media and authority figures, combined with a lack of widespread scientific literacy in earlier decades, helped the myth flourish. While fans pose no lethal risk, minor discomforts are possible. Prolonged direct airflow can cause dry eyes, nasal irritation, or muscle stiffness, but these are easily avoided by adjusting fan placement or staying hydrated. In rare cases, faulty fans could pose electrical or fire hazards, but this applies to any appliance and isn't specific to overnight use. For those wary of fan death, practical steps like opening a window or using a fan with a timer can provide reassurance, though these are driven by cultural habit rather than necessity. The myth's persistence has even influenced fan design, with South Korean models often featuring timers as a nod to the superstition. The fan death myth is losing ground among younger, more skeptical South Koreans, particularly as global communication and scientific literacy grow. On platforms like X, users often treat it as a humorous quirk, with posts joking about surviving fan death or debating its origins. However, the belief remains prevalent among older generations and in rural areas, where tradition holds stronger sway. Globally, fan death is viewed as a curious anomaly, occasionally covered in media as an example of cultural superstition. Similar myths, like fears of ceiling fans causing harm in other countries, reflect universal concerns about nighttime safety, but lack the specificity of South Korea's fan death narrative. The myth's cultural specificity makes it a fascinating case study in how superstitions evolve in modern societies. The idea that leaving a fan on all night can kill you is a myth with no scientific basis, deeply rooted in South Korean culture but unsupported by evidence. Fans do not deplete oxygen, cause hypothermia, or induce fatal dehydration. The belief likely arose from misattributed deaths, media amplification, and cultural fears about air and technology, persisting through confirmation bias and tradition. While it shapes behavior in South Korea, from fan design to bedtime habits, it's a reminder of how superstitions can endure despite rational counter-arguments. So, feel free to keep your fan running overnight. Science says you'll wake up just fine.